So, I know what you're thinking. New kid on the block. Never told a D&D story on YouTube before. But I was inspired by another YouTuber, and I think this might just be an interesting venture. You may be asking, why am I listening to this crappily drawn character talk to me on YouTube for no reason? And that I cannot say. But I do know that we're going to tell a D&D story, and it's going to be a wild ride. So, I think that if we could all just lower our swords of criticism, it would make us all a little happier. I do want to say, though, full disclaimer, I cannot draw very well, and a lot of the art, especially of the party that is in this campaign, will be drawn by one of my friends. On our Discord, he is called ArtTunes. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he is okay with me saying his name. But if this is received pretty well, this is going to sound ridiculous if this actually gets popular. If I can get this to hit 10 views, I will start making more of these D&D story video type things. So first, to start this story, we need to introduce our party. So we're just going to go through one by one all the characters that were at session 1 and describe their characters. So first we have a gunslinger snake race. It is a custom homebrew race. Our campaign has a lot of homebrew in it. And this character's name is Roselle. Now at this point he didn't have his signature gun that he normally carries around, which was created by another member of our party, but he is he likes the idea of constricting people, so that's what he does in battle. He constricts people, and 9 times out of 10, once he kills them, he eats them. Because he's a snake, he has fast metabolism. We decided that was a good way to balance the power of his constrict ability. He also has another ability that allows him to eat people and regain health equal to whatever he rolls on a d4. Then you have the Artificer, which would be Chop's character. That's his name in our Discord. I think this character's name is Blaze. I could be wrong on that. If I am, I will correct it in another video. But he is our Artificer. He's good in combat, but he really prefers to build things and assist the party from afar using robotic parts. And this character you'll see a lot of different concept designs for, as we've not really decided on a solid design for his character yet, and so we've just been doing concept art. In some of it, he's 3 feet tall, in some of it, he's full robot, in some of it, he is just a person with a robot on his back, but in the actual campaign, he does have one robotic arm. I can't remember what he's named it, but it has a little grappling hand. He's not used that yet, though, so we probably won't be discussing that too much in this D&D story. But he does have that on him, in case you were wondering. Next, we have the creepy, dark warlock guy. Now, there will be a D&D story released later, like I said, if this one does halfway decently. In the current sessions that we play, he is a sentient demon, but there is actually a story-related reason to why he is that. But at this point in the campaign, he was still human, so I drew this one, as you can tell, because it's really crappy. It's not as good as ArtTunes. So yeah, sorry about that. This was when I was still learning to draw cloaks. I've gotten a lot better at it. But this is one of our characters. He's a warlock. He always wears this creepy mask. It's a white mask, and he never said it, but I imagine it's got like a big scar going down his eye. I think it looks kind of cool, like a big crack. He uses it to disguise himself and also hide his true identity, which kind of makes sense within the context of the world. It may be war-torn, but people kind of gang up on more powerful people, so he's really trying to keep his identity hidden so that he doesn't get caught without any assistance from his group, which is pretty smart in my opinion. But now that you've been given D&D character introductions, we're going to get into our nice, wholesome D&D story. So, our campaign takes place on the continent of Rockgar, and it is a custom campaign, in case you are wondering. But the party, they arrive on this ship into a very small port town called Chile, and it's bustling with business, but it's not exactly a big town where everybody stays. It's really kind of just a harbor town where people come, do their business, and leave. So they step off the dock, and they're kind of standing around, looking around. There's not much. There's a few houses, a couple shops, and they end up going straight to the city gate where they see this dwarf with a steel pickaxe, and he looks like he needs some help. So they walk up to him, and the dwarf just looks at him, and he's like, "Hey, there's some bandits at our mine. They've taken over. We need you to go fight them." And of course, the party was looking for work, so they decided that it would be a good idea to help out this dwarf. The dwarf offered them some rewards if they came back alive and had killed the bandits. So they walk a little ways, and they get to this mine, and they see this really ragtag group of bandits. Again, very obviously drawn by me because the quality of the drawing is not too great. But there's only 3 bandits outside, and it is a goblin that first notices them. Well, I guess there's only 2 bandits outside. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. There's a goblin that notices them, and the goblin kind of runs back to this big orc and climbs up on her shoulder and kind of just sits there like a parrot, just like you can see in the picture I have drawn there. So they try to peacefully get by, and they basically asked them to leave. They didn't want to kill them. They were trying to be a good party and not be murder hobos, which, by the way, if you guys are watching, kudos. You are some of the best players I could ask for. But they want to be peaceful, so they decide they're going to talk. It doesn't go well. The orc tries to attack them because they threaten the orc after the orc doesn't listen. They try to intimidate it, and it fails. So the orc gets wrapped up by Arttoon's character, Rizal, and Rizal has this thing constricted. And then our artificer, Blaze, runs up, kicks the giant axe out of the orc's hand, and swings it down on this poor goblin. And it hits the goblin directly in the midsection. So this goblin's not dead, but it's on the verge. So it kind of stands up. And at this point, it gets a little gory, so if you don't want to listen to some gory details, then go ahead and click off the video. But he swings this axe down, it hits this goblin right in the midsection, and it stands up with its dagger ready. It's waving side to side because it's woozy, and it's just taking random swings. It's got its intestines hanging out, and it's bleeding because this big axe has just cut into it. And they end up killing the goblin with relative ease. He's swinging and he misses, and Blaze kind of just grabs his arm and stabs him in the chest, and that finally ends his suffering. So then they get to the orc, and they try one last time while they're wrapped around this orc to try and convince him to leave, which of course he again says, like, "I'm not gonna go, we found the mine, we've made it our own, you can't do anything about it." So Rizal decides to stab the orc, which almost kills the orc, and then he pulls out his dagger and eats the orc alive to satisfy his need for sustenance twice a day. So this orc, it's going down his throat, and it's still screaming and beating on the inside of Rizal's stomach, and then it kind of hits his center, and just the screaming stops, and it just kind of sizzles, and he digests the food incredibly fast, which creeped out most of the party when I described that. They didn't like that much, because they thought they were just killing the guy, and the guy, like, died inside of him. It was a whole ordeal. So they decide that they're gonna move in, and they see this little halfling girl, which, by the way, if this does well and it sticks around, there's a story about the halfling girl, too. But they see this little halfling girl, and she's kind of, like, hiding. She's afraid of the snake person. So she kind of hides in the back and begs for them not to kill her. She didn't want to be with the bandit group. She was kidnapped. Tells a little bit of her backstory. It's really not much of a backstory. And she basically begs for mercy not to kill them. They decide they're going to take her along. So they make her hide outside the mines, like any responsible adult would do. And they move in, and they hear this silent groaning in the back of the mine. So they go back there, and they see this bandit dressed in a jester costume, dancing around this guy, and this guy's, like, hanging on the wall. He looks banged up. He looks like he's been tortured by this jester guy. Well, this Jester guy is an insane bandit. Not like power level or anything. He's just in his head, he's actually insane. So that was fun to roleplay, I just gotta say. But he ends up fighting them, and again, they dispatch of the Jester with relative ease because he introduces himself as the Jester, and they get this guy off of the wall. I remember telling them to roll for it because this guy had like barbed wire wrapped around his wrists, holding him up to the wall, and he was close to death. And I remember telling Roselle to roll sleight of hand to get this guy off and see if this guy gets hurt as he's falling off. And he rolls a natural 20. So at that point, I gotta give it to the player. So now I gotta keep this NPC alive, and I'm like, well, crap, what can I make him do? So I just decide I'm going to make this NPC die. And so he's like bleeding to death, lying on the ground. He guides them to some treasure. It wasn't much, there was just some money, and I think maybe an enchanted dagger in there. Wasn't too powerful, though. And this guy's about to die. But like I said before, the party's resourceful, and they're looting bodies, and they decide that they're gonna they find a bandage on this jester character that they've just killed. And in the treasure, I forgot to mention, they found a minor healing potion. So they kind of coat the bandage a little bit and wrap it around some of his more serious wounds, and then they make him drink what's left of it. And it's just enough for him to survive. And I remember I hit him right in the feels at the very end of that session, because they're walking out and they're holding up this limping dwarf, and the warlock hasn't arrived yet. At this point, it's just Roselle and the artificer Blaze. And so they're making this dwarf limp along into town, and the gate opens as the dwarf that told them to go help yells something into the wall. And as it opens, a dwarven woman and a little dwarven girl runs out, and they both hug him. And they're so thankful to the party that the dwarves actually allow the party stay at their house that night free of charge, since they helped them so much. So the party ends up going to a blacksmith. I'll do a short video on the blacksmith if any of you guys want, because it's kind of a story in itself, but it would only be a 2-3 minute video. There's a lot of art that would be involved in it, though, is why I'm not really detailing it as much in this one. They got really good enchanted weapons that they still use to this day. And so they go this night to this dwarf's house, and the dwarf welcomes them in, and that night, the artificer, Blaze, builds Roselle a sniper rifle. So this has been the birth of Roselle's sniper rifle at this point. And the artificer doesn't sleep as much. He doesn't need as much sleep due to some of his robotic parts. He requires less sleep than normal things. So he stays up most of the night just building things. And where we're going to leave this video off, just so I can do an episode 2 if I decide to, he hears the little halfling girl that they brought with them outside the door talking to somebody, whispering, saying something about, "Don't kill them." And Blaze, the artificer, hears this and decides to open the door. But if you want to know what he sees, then you've got to like the video, tell me you want another one. I'll probably do another one as soon as I can if somebody gives a crap. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. This is my first D&D story, and Dingo Doodles, you're probably never going to watch this, but your YouTube channel inspired me to make this video, so thank you if you do ever end up seeing this. Bye, guys.